Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Welcome to the celebration of the redevelopment of the Bellows Falls Garage. I'm Marion with the Housing Trust. We're going to hear a lot of stories today, many of them about the importance of new homes in this community, about the continued revitalization of this beautiful village, and about the former garage itself and many of the unique uses since it was built a century ago. But all of this is recent history when you consider the Abenaki people who stewarded the resources in this area for over 10,000 years and still consider this a sacred place. The land on which we gather today is Abenaki land. So before we go on, we open with acknowledging this. We're standing on what the Abenaki people call Kitsi Pon Tegak, or Great Falls. The land we redevelop, the land we hold in trust across the region, is Abenaki land. We also acknowledge the harmful past and present impact of colonization dominating the landscape and actively erasing Indigenous peoples and culture. We acknowledge the years of industrialization that have removed artifacts from sacred sites. Despite this erasure, we know these banks of the river have been important fishing and ceremonial grounds for the Abenaki people. We recognize the ongoing sacred nature of the petroglyphs just downstream. We know Abenaki culture is alive and continuous despite this pervasive narrative to the contrary. We strive to elevate this more complete narrative and celebrate the recent news that the story of the petroglyphs here will be retold and informed by Indigenous voices. We honor traditional relationships with this land, knowing we share the responsibility to steward the land and tell the full story. We worked with Rich Holshoe from the Otui project to create this land acknowledgement, so acknowledging that as well.
Thank you, Marion. Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Bridgewater with the Housing Trust. I gotta say, it's really emotional to be here right now and to look out at so many incredible people who have been involved in this project. And just the fact that we're here celebrating the almost completion of the Bellows Falls Garage redevelopment. So the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust involvement in this village goes back decades, actually. And I did warn Connie that I was going to tell this story. I don't know what, oh, there she is. But this more recent story started in 2017. So when my predecessor and mentor was getting ready to retire, one of the very last things she said to me is, you really need to find a project in Bellows Falls. This town hasn't had this kind of investment in decades, and the need for really good, safe, quality and affordable housing is great in this town. So that's my kind of parting words to you. So this is actually something I was genuinely excited about because 20 years ago, I bought Jill James's aunt's house on Hadley Street and was a landlord in town. I didn't live here, but I came up once a month and spent time here and just fell in love with the region. And I understood by being a landlord just how critical it was for housing improvements to be made here. So to state the obvious, Connie, we did find a way forward. We did find a project in Bellows Falls. And I say we with a lot of power because there's many people who contributed to the creation of these 27 beautiful homes. It's actually astonishing how much collective creativity, commitment, and resources it took to get to this moment right now. The building's not 100% complete. We're about 6 weeks away. We expect to welcome the new residents on June 1st, and it's being applications are being taken right now. But we are going to go upstairs to the 4th floor and see a sampling of the apartments, and Marion has done a beautiful job setting up some historic photos. Also, the construction montage videos are going to be upstairs, and also a chance for folks who have stories about the building to tell their stories on video so that we can preserve some of the wonderful stories. This moment is the prize that we've kept our eyes on for 4 years, welcoming residents to new homes that they can afford. It feels so good to be here right now, but I have to say June 1st is going to feel even better. So and you all know, what was once a dilapidated, broken down structure now stands this beautiful building. It is comprised of 27 homes. There are 5 studios, 18 one-bedrooms, and 4 two-bedrooms. There are several of the apartments that have project-based vouchers attached to them, and that was a contract right through HUD that was facilitated by the Vermont State Housing Authority. Several of the homes will also have the opportunity to have support, people living in them from Sevka, who's our partner in providing support. There's community space on the 1st floor, and there's commercial space on Rockingham Street. And so you'll see some of those features today. The building was designed by Diantha Korzen of GBA Architects. It's highly energy efficient with a tight envelope and an innovative healing and cooling system that circulates outside air. It controls humidity for the comfort of the residents. Throughout the design phase of the project, Efficiency Vermont provided both resources and technical assistance to support the goal that we did achieve of reaching their energy efficient high performance standards. So as you'll see though, we did not do that at the expense of the gorgeous views and the big windows that had been in the original building. Those were preserved through energy efficient windows and some of the designs that Gossens Bachman developed. Many of the people that you're going to hear speak this afternoon provided significant resources to this project. They also contributed moral support and lent their sense of confidence in us as a development team that we would get to the finish line. And many of you know this project shared a lot of challenges along the way. So that sense of moral support and belief in us was really important actually, and it was very sustaining. Just to call out those that were involved, the team at M&T Bank in particular, they're our equity partner with this project. They never wavered, throughout all the various hiccups that we had. They were positive and confident that we would find a way forward, and we did with their support. The staff and the board of directors at the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, the Vermont Housing and Finance Agency, the Vermont Community Development Program, all of them are committed people to affordable housing and deeply committed to this project. They welcomed us back with open arms when we had a new design and a new budget, and they wanted to see this project get done. So the Housing Trust was definitely in the lead in this project, but there were a lot of people that believed in this project and made it happen. Our most flexible funding source was NeighborWorks of America, and I know Tricia Guditz is here today. Thank you, Tricia, for coming all the way from the Boston area to be with us. This was a key ingredient. We talk about NeighborWorks funding as being the most flexible, and I have to say, as costs continued to escalate, even through the pre-construction phase, it was nice to have that kind of flexible funding to fill in that gap at the last, literally right before closing. Finally, brownfields funding through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and through the Wyndham Regional Commission played a crucial role in both assessing the historic environmental impacts of the site and mitigating them. So I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all the resources and moral support that you provided during the development of this project. But this story isn't just about money and how we went about securing the resources to build these homes. It was also about the various people that live in town who helped bring this project to fruition. And I don't know if Frank is here, I didn't see him, but it really starts with Frank Hawkins saying yes to us for the third attempt of offering to buy the building. Connie had tried to buy it before she left, and Pete and I tried right at the beginning, so we got 2 no's and finally a yes. He was also incredibly patient. There's a lot of regulatory steps to go through before you can actually buy a building when you are going through this kind of process, and he was very patient. Also want to call out Chroma Technology. They provided an early grant to help us buy the building, and it was really one of the keys that unlocked the doors to this project. Community members like Robert McBride, Jeff Dunbar, Barbara Turnus, Elijah Zimmer, and many others showed up at countless community meetings and gave feedback on the design, helped us refine the exterior of the building, even coming down and choosing the color of the siding. We kind of laid out many choices, and that was the color that the majority of community members, actually a fairly high majority of community members wanted. Also, Emmett Dunbar and Betsy Thurston at the Bellows Falls Downtown Business Alliance were cheering us on throughout. And Chuck Wise and Scott Pickup and Gary Fox at Town Hall, and all the volunteer board members that work on boards in the village really did a marvelous job in just considering how this project fit in with their zoning bylaws and also the town goals. I also want to recognize our development team for their extraordinary effort on this project, especially during this redesign phase. At the core of our team is Pete Podgy, the Housing Trust Director of Housing Development. Pete was involved in every aspect of this project and still is, from taking the first steps to acquire the building, selecting the development team, stewarding the permitting process, attending every project meeting during construction. Together, we worked very closely with Jeff Cantor, our development consultant, who has worked with the Housing Trust for over 35 years. This is where I might get verklempt because Jeff is just such an amazing member of our team. He's our chief problem solver, our chief warrior. And I say warrior meaning worrying about things. And he kept saying, "You're paying me to worry about things on your behalf." And boy, you got a lot of worrying time in this project. You're a warrior and a warrior. Really though, Jeff has been a steady presence on a lot of Housing Trust projects, and he was here. We really truly would not be here without him. As I mentioned, Diantha Corzin was the lead architect who designed the building with support from Greg, one of the principals of GBA Architects. Paul Hobbs and Bob Neild from Engineering Ventures were the structural engineers, and Matt Wheaton and Jim Gardner and others on the DEW construction team provided critical construction management services during the redesign process. I just want to describe what it was like for a minute to open up the bid package when and to find out that the project wasn't going to work when we had a groundbreaking scheduled and actually already went through it, and then opened up our bids and realized that we had to pause and regroup. We immediately pivoted and hired DEW to be our construction managers, and I have to say we came to the table a little daunted because it was pretty intimidating at first, but the collaborative spirit that people came with and the can-do attitude was palpable. Week after week, everybody showed up with good ideas, construction details, budget numbers, and more than that, a strong commitment to finding a way forward and a belief that we would find a way forward. And we did. And I think I could speak for all of us when I say that the way that we worked together as a team under that kind of intense pressure was nothing short of remarkable. And I just want to call that out because it was just actually, I said to Denny Frizzy at one point, am I allowed to be having fun doing this? Because we were working so well together under this like intense problem solving. It started to feel like a lot of fun, and it's because everybody was really amazing during that time period. And here we are, you can see the results of it. Finally, I want to thank our immediate neighbors, Robert McBride, who unfortunately can't be here. He's in California, supporting somebody else that is dear to him, very much the way he does all the time. He owns the 2 houses right next door, and it's just been an amazing, wonderful presence for us throughout the whole project. Brian Joys of PK's Pub, amazing, a butter to just, and Rocky at the China Garden, they just had so much generosity and grace as we were going through the construction project. Lots of disruptions with a building that size coming down bite by bite by these big, huge machines. DEW site managers Steve Hart and Nick Pease did a great job, though, of communicating, and our clerk of the works, Scott McCusick, who's also one of our big problem solvers, also was just there to help with hiccups along the way. So I just want to thank all of you that I've named, but also all of you that I didn't name. I know there's a lot of other people who contributed that I didn't call out by name. You have played an amazing role in getting us here. So we all know that creating new housing in Vermont is vital. It's essential to the state, the health of the state, and to all of us, all Vermonters. Those of us that work in this field directly know how complicated and challenging this work is, but the reward is very deep. And that is knowing that our collective efforts are going to provide new homes for people in just a short 6 weeks. That's the reward of doing this work, and that's why we do this work, is because we're going to make a big difference in the lives of the people that are going to move into this building. So I want to end there and just thank you all for being here. And then I'm going to introduce our next speaker. But before I do that, I just want to say a little housekeeping thing. I've got the order of speakers right here on a piece of paper, and I'm going to ask each person to welcome the next one right after them so that we can keep moving this along. It also means that don't take the order with you when you pick up your notes, and don't walk off with them, because the next person won't know. If you do that, I brought extra copies, so I'll be sitting right over there. You can call out to me. We thought that our new Congresswoman, Becca Balint, was going to be here today. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, so we're going to switch up the order a little bit. She was going to be our first speaker. So instead, we're going to welcome Erhard Manka, who is representing Senator Sanders. Welcome.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Got to make sure I don't take that list with me. Again, my name's Erhard Manka. I am an outreach representative for Senator Bernie Sanders, and it is really wonderful to be here today. Thanks so much for having me. And the Senator, of course, regrets not being able to be here for this amazing day, this great celebration of this truly transformational project that I know has had many challenges along the way. The Senator sends, on his behalf, I want to send his congratulations to Elizabeth and Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, to the community, which has worked really hard, and to everyone really who has worked so hard to make today a reality, and to make the imminent occupation by folks, by residents of this building a reality. The Senator knows full well that housing is absolutely foundational. It is absolutely critical for the success of everyone. Without having housing as a foundation, no one really can succeed in life. And it is especially gratifying to know that this housing is going to be extremely affordable to folks here in Bellows Falls, that some of the units are going to be dedicated to folks who have experienced homelessness and are coming from homelessness. Senator Sanders feels very strongly, as I think most of you know, that housing is a human right, period. It is something that we all need, and again, without which none of us can succeed in our lives. And he's been fighting for housing ever since he was mayor of Burlington many years ago. He's been a strong advocate for funding for affordable housing. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and Elizabeth has mentioned the funders and the many different sources of funding that went into this. One of the critical things that we often forget is, we hear about the federal government being a problem and not working for everyday people. Well, the federal government is in large part responsible for much of the funding for the project that is allowing folks to live here and to live affordably and in safe, stable, and accessible housing. And so one of the messages that I want to bring on behalf of the Senator is that government can work for everyday Vermonters. Government can make these kinds of things happen, and it does so with your and my taxpayer dollars. These are our taxpayer dollars at work. And I think it's important for us all to remember that that is part of what is making today possible. The center was particularly gratified to know that one of the funding sources, one of the federal funding sources that is making this project possible is the National Housing Trust Fund, which was a federal funding source that he himself was the original lead sponsor on making that happen. It was a long struggle, and just as this project has been a long struggle for everyone that's been involved, finding and creating these housing programs at the federal level is a struggle. It was a struggle that took over 10 years to happen. So just again, congratulations to everyone involved. Congratulations to Elizabeth, to everyone at the Windsor Housing Trust team, to everyone from the architect, to Jeff, who did yeoman's work working with Wyndham and Windsor. I worked with Jeff in the past and know what amazing work he can do and how he can help nonprofits like Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust make projects like this happen. But really, it takes the proverbial village, and so I think the congratulations also really need to be to everyone in the community for having made this possible, all the folks that Elizabeth mentioned before. And again, thank you so much for having me, and thanks on behalf of my boss, Senator Bernie Sanders. And the next person on the list is to speak. The next speaker is James McNerney from Senator Welch's office.
Well, thank you, Erhard, for the introduction. Again, my name is James McNerney. I'm an outreach representative and caseworker for Senator Welch out of his Burlington office, and I'm certainly honored and excited to be here on behalf of Senator Welch as well, who wishes he could have been here to attend this event, but certainly wanted to send on his behalf very sincere applause and congratulations to all of the organizations, the business partners, the agencies, and the community members that teamed up to deliver this really incredible housing project. Certainly, Senator Welch recognizes what a critical need this project meets, and was thrilled to see the completion and the delivery here upcoming in the next few weeks. So as we gather here tonight during, I think, what is very appropriately Fair Housing Month here in April, I just want to acknowledge the challenges that many of our rural communities are facing in terms of housing availability. In every part of our state and in every conversation that we have, we hear about the major need for access to affordable and quality housing, and in particular our rural communities that are most severely impacted by the lack of housing resources. When families struggle to find housing that is within their means, it leads to a whole range of problems, to economic problems, health problems, overcrowding, and homelessness. And so it's projects like this that help to address and really revitalize our communities and to meet those needs. So, for this reason, among others, of course, the Senator is a strong advocate for initiatives that aim to address the housing crisis in rural communities. And as Erhard mentioned, access to affordable housing is a fundamental need and right that every American deserves, regardless of where they work and live. So the completion of this housing project is a testament to the hard work, the ingenuity, the resourcefulness, the creativity, and the commitment of everyone involved. And it's an important step towards ensuring that families here in Bellows Falls have access to that safe and affordable housing. So that's not to say that there's not a lot of work yet to be done. Certainly here and in other communities around our state, there is much work still that needs to be done on the housing front. And Senator Welch is committed to working with his colleagues in Congress on both sides of the aisle to support policies and programs that are going to increase access to affordable housing, to strengthen rural communities, and to increase economic opportunities for all. So once again, congratulations to the members of this community, to all of the organizations involved with this project. Certainly Senator Welch and our office look forward to continuing to work with everyone to stabilize and increase affordable housing options for everyone here and elsewhere around the state. Thank you. next up, we've got Gus Seelig with DHCB.
It's a great day to be in Bellows Falls and a lot to celebrate. And I just want to start by acknowledging the members of my staff who are here. Ariane Kassam and I live up north, but Jenny Hislop grew up here in Bellows Falls, and Polly Major just down the road in Westminster. And we're just all delighted to be with you today and to be able to celebrate. I want to talk a little bit about the roots that made this possible, and the last two speakers left out a couple of important things. One is that our senior senator really brought the idea of community land trust to the state of Vermont, and I see Chuck Collins is in the audience, along with John Davis, who came up to Vermont many years ago to teach us what a community land trust really could be. And Senator Welch was among the original sponsors, his first time pro tem, to bring the Housing and Conservation Board into existence so that we could be here and fund projects like this. So thanks to both your bosses. And we've been fond of saying for many years, we have the best delegation in the country, and that's no different now that Becca Ballant, your own, has been sent to Congress, and you'll hear from her staff in a moment. A bit about the roots here, because a lot of the roots of the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust come from Connie Snow and the great work she did. But because we're in Bellows Falls today, take a moment to remember a couple people, Louise Park and Mary Ellen Clark, who went to the Church of Emmanuel back in the 1980s and got them to come up with a gift of, I think, $30,000 to create the Rockingham Area Community Land Trust, one of the forerunners, and then came to us for a grant, and then hired a guy named Andy Broderick for 6 months, he told me, as a trial to see whether this thing could work. And they began with a project on William Street. Back then we thought everybody would want to be a homeowner, and it was originally going to be organized as a co-op. That idea eventually proved not to be what people wanted, and that became rental housing. And across the years, because of Andy, the Howard Block, the Exner Block happened. And back then, when you came through Bellows Falls, it didn't look anything like it does today. And so for all of you from Bellows Falls who've been building this community, thank you so much for the work you've done. This was not an easy project. And I'm glad, Elizabeth, that you're looking back and talking about the joy in working on it, but that wasn't every phone call that we had about this project at all. It was a stressor. And you know, we're in this season of Easter and Passover, and if you go to a Stater, there's a song, Dayenu, and it would have been enough, is what it means, to just take a brownfield and turn it into homes. But you've done so much more here than just take a brownfield and turn it into homes. And whether the question was how to work with the neighborhood, or the question was how to clean up a brownfield, or how to pull together money when the original cost estimates were completely wrong and the construction methodology couldn't be honored and had to be redone. Wow, what a trip you've been on. It's remarkable, and thank you so much. A few years back, the organization hosted a great concert at the Opera House, and those of us who came got to see Mavis Staples. And what a wonderful night that was. It was the first time I'd ever seen her live. In the midst of the concert, she danced across the stage and turned to the audience and said, "You didn't think I could do that anymore, did you?" And that's really a lot of what this project is doing something that people really didn't think could happen. And that's what the work of the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust has been across the pandemic on so many fronts, of doing things that we weren't sure really could happen. And as I think about that night, I also think about my own youth, because this has been really difficult times. And I grew up front row seat in the civil rights movement, and actually went to, and in the middle of her concert, she also talked about the Big March. The Big March was not the March on Washington. The big march was the march from Selma. It was preceded by the death of a civil rights worker who was trying to register people to vote, and it was met with something that we call in the history books Bloody Sunday. And in my youth, I went to a summer camp in the late 60s where the music counselor was Bernice Johnson Reagan, and she gave us the music of the civil rights movement. And I think worth thinking about some of those titles today of "We Shall Not Be Moved," "Ain't Nobody Gonna Turn Me Around," "This Little Light of Mine," among the things that she taught at camp. And when I think of where we are today, where we are as a country that allows homelessness at a level we've never seen before, we think of housing as a human right. That's why we do this work. We think of it as fundamental to human dignity. And these are not easy fights to take on. And like that time that Mavis Stables was talking about, a time of great violence, we're in a time where we seem to have let loose lots of demons in our country that are not always kind. And so it makes our work even more important. And fundamentally, what's happened here is not just homes. What you've all done together has been to take blight and move it to light. And that's going to lift all of us up, not just the 27 households who move in here, but all of us. So thank you so much for what you've done and you'll continue to do. And we look forward to more reasons, all of us, to coming back to Bellows Falls and coming back to Windham County. And with that, I want to give you the most creative housing finance agency director in the state, Maura Collins. I meant the country, the state.
Thank you. I'm Maura Collins. I'm with the Housing Finance Agency. So happy to be here with our development director, Megan Rausch, and Chad Simmons. Josh Slade, our underwriter who worked on this project for many years, wanted to be here and couldn't be. I will keep my remarks short, except to say, what a gorgeous day. I could not imagine a more beautiful setting, because we don't need the sun, we don't need the warmth, we don't need the springtime sunflowers, because we got this. Okay? We have 27 homes as of June 1st, but we will continue to have so many more as people get settled, get rooted in this community, make other choices, move on, and more families will be able to move in here, look out those gorgeous windows, take a part of the community area and all that this building has to offer. And that's only possible because our congressional delegation has long supported the federal tax credits that pay for about 65% of the development costs of this building. And those have been championed by our congressional partners for many, many years and continue to be. And then that is a public-private partnership where M&T Bank, formerly People's United Bank, invested in those tax credits and were able to turn those boring federal tax credits into real money that paid for the laborers and workers and supplies and materials that built this building here today. So it's a beautiful program. It's one that VHFA administers, and we're proud to do so. But there were, as others have said, lots of sources of money, lots of people who came together to do this. I am so happy to just be a small little part of such a beautiful day today and a beautiful building. So next up, I'd like to introduce David Scher from Congresswoman Becca Ballard's office.
Good afternoon, and thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having us in the delegation. The Congresswoman very much regrets that she isn't able to be here today, but she really wants to express her gratitude for the extraordinary work that has been done here to bring us to this point. In our first few months in office, there's obviously many issues that are incredibly pressing here in Vermont and around the country. But two issues in particular that she has been laser focused on in her first few months are housing and mental health. And for those of you who are involved in this work, you know that those two issues are very, very much intertwined. The first town hall that the Congresswoman held was solely focused on the issue of housing, and she is committed in Congress to preserving and expanding the various sources of federal funding and federal financing that make projects like this possible. And in the current political environment in her chamber, she will likely also be working hard to protect what's already there. But she looks forward to working with the senators and making sure that their good work will get across the finish line in the House as well. As Senator Sanders, Representative Earhart said so well, this is in part a great representation of our federal government working. This is an example of government working. But the Congresswoman sent me here today primarily to give a strong statement of heartfelt gratitude, because those federal dollars, that financing, that support cannot happen without the extraordinary effort, caring, and hard work of the people on the ground here in Bellows Falls, in the county, in the state. This takes such an enormous amount of work, as we've already heard. It takes an enormous amount of heart, and we wouldn't be here today without all of that. So the Congresswoman wanted me to make sure I emphasize her heartfelt gratitude for all that has been done to get us to this point. We will now have people with good, secure, safe housing who may not otherwise have had it, and that ultimately is a testament to the incredible hearts and hard work and caring this happened to bring us to this day. So thank you all, and the Congresswoman sends her thanks. And next up, we have Josh Hanford from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development.
Thanks, David. So Josh Hanford, Commissioner, Department of Housing and Community Development, representing the governor here today, which an active construction site, I'm sure the governor as a builder and contractor would like to see the finishing touches being put on here today. I'm really just here to say thanks to a lot of people for the hard work. You know, there's a lot of people in our agency that worked on this project, from historic preservation to the brownfields folks and the community development block grant program, which is also a federal program. To like to thank congressional delegation for keeping that program funded. I think David may have been on the board at the time that this project came before the board for approval. And that program really represents what does work about government well. It's a local, state, and federal partnership. That program is available to municipalities. They choose what to put in applications for and what to fund. And this community chose this project and worked hard to support it along the way. And then the state administers that program, works with other partners, other federal funds to really pull these projects off. But it doesn't happen, obviously, without the local folks on the ground here in Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust and all your partners to pull this off, which was a roller coaster over the years for sure. And I'm just happy to be here, play a teeny little part in making sure that we can help folks that are doing good work like this to bring housing on board. And just to wrap up, it's awesome to see so many people here and braving the weather and coming out with lots of energy, because we'll all need a lot of sustained energy to address the housing needs in Vermont. And I hope we can count on this sort of effort and support every project that we need to undertake, because there's a lot we need to do. So thank you. And I'd like to welcome Adam Seaver from M&T Bank up.
Thanks, Josh. Gonna keep it short and sweet. First thing I want to do is thank my colleague Marilyn Hardiker, who I'm standing in for. You know, she did a lot of work on this project. She's bummed she couldn't be here, but I'm sure she's going to get here soon to see this wonderful building. The best part of our job is being able to, put our resources to help the local community build housing, because that's really what we need most in this community. So yeah, congratulations to everyone involved, and Wyndham and Windsor, we look forward to the next project we can do together, and hopefully it's really soon. So next I'd like to welcome Senator Wendy Harrison, please.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm really excited. Before I start, I want to acknowledge my colleagues who are here. Representatives Leslie Goldman, Michelle Boslin, and Sarah Coffey are here to celebrate also. I'm here wearing a couple of different hats. My first job when I moved to Vermont was with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. So where's Connie? I want to say thank you, Connie. There. And thank you not just for that, obviously, but for all of the work that you've done. And Elizabeth has done an amazing job of continuing that work. And seeing it from the inside, I know how complicated it is. Just a regular project is complicated, not just this one. And so I want to congratulate Elizabeth Bridgewater and the team at Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. And it's another amazing job. And I see this garage as an example of the persistence and determination of the Housing Trust. I was the municipal manager here when this project started or was conceived, and the challenge that we faced at that time was parking. And what a tiny challenge that is now, right? But Peter Paggi was very creative, worked with the town, and we were able to find some ways to deal with the parking issue. And you found ways to deal with everything else that came along after that. They had to basically rebuild a building that was feet away from existing buildings, and that was not planned. So thank you very, very much for your persistence. Bellows Falls is such a special place. There will be now 27 more families living here. They may already live here. They may be new families. They'll enjoy the history, the walkability, the schools, the parks, the trails, and affordable movie tickets right outside their door. Just had to give them. And I just want to, all of the housing trusts in the state are a critical provider of affordable housing in Vermont, and they've been doing that for 35 plus years. So thank you for all of that work. As I represent the state now, I want to talk a little bit about what the state is working on in housing, which we recognize is causing human and economic distress at all levels. And I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to help craft legislation to address this situation. Believe it or not, parking requirements are too often a barrier to housing, and we are proposing to reduce that barrier. There are lots of other things in our bill, which is under consideration now, but I want to call out one program in particular because it's also being used in Bellows Falls, and it's in Josh's area, which is the VHIP program, the Vermont Housing Improvement Program. And this is almost at the other end of the spectrum from a housing trust program. It's private sector, it's private landlords, individual landlords who are able to bring units up to code, and there are grants of up to $50,000. It's also administered by Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, but it's a separate sort of program, and it's happening in Bellows Falls. So I just want you to be aware there are many, many ways that we can improve and preserve housing, and this project, as well as VHIP, they're similar in the way that they preserve what's so special about this community. They preserve the fabric of the community. So they bring value to properties that aren't even being developed, and I'm just so proud of all of those. So we need all of those programs, both those programs, and then there's many more I could talk about, but I won't do that because I want to see the building. So thank you again for having me. The next person will be Peter Golick, Select Board Member.
Thank you, Wendy. I was Wendy's boss when she first came to us. Isn't that amazing how I follow her instead of she follows me? But anyway, thank you, sir. When this project first came to fruition, presented to the board, there's a lot of excitement when that happened. Then a couple months later, all of a sudden, the foot came down and said, "Oh, we can't do it. We don't have the funding." Well, things kind of got a little nervous at that point at the board level, but we pursued and persevered, and it came through, and they came through with a different plan. Then the concern became, well, the building's not going to look like what you first put down. And it was just, well, consequently, a little less money, something's got to change. The biggest concern was the facade on the front of the building, where it said the BF garage and stuff. I think you guys hit it right on the head. I don't think there's much of a change. You can't tell. The good thing is that it's an improvement to as you come down the street into town, instead of seeing that wrecked building and all the windows missing and stuff falling off it. And now we have this building that's really going to provide some vibrancy, because it's unique in the fact that it's in the downtown area. It's close to all walkable areas. You can get the vibrancy of the business will take place. We got housing down here, so it's really going to work. And I think that it's a pleasure to see the new building replace the old one, because who wants to see a wreck of a building? And we've got enough of those buildings around, between burned out buildings and others that we're finally getting rid of, but it's taken a while to get there. So I don't really think that with this location and the availability of other businesses and facilities this close, it's going to have a problem that they're going to have filling up those apartments, and hopefully the same with the businesses that will move in here and stay, not just come in for a couple of months and move on. So I'll be short and say that we wish that the wish of Wyndham Windsor Housing is going forward with all the good luck. And we hope to look forward to working with them on other ventures in town. We know there's a few. So with that, I will introduce Emmett Dunbar for BIFTA, Bellows Falls Development, Downtown Development. Go around there.
Hi everybody, I wear a few hats. I live in Windham County, and I co-founded the Canal Street Art Gallery on Canal Street, and I've been a member and involved with BIFTA, Bellows Falls Downtown Development Alliance, otherwise coming to you known as the BFD, Bellows Falls Downtown. So, Bellows Falls Downtown, so I'm the president of the board of that. And then fortunately, I recently started a job, which I love, for 9 months as the Economic Development Director for the Development Department at SEVCA, Southeast Community Vermont. Well, I can't say it, but you know what it is, SEVCA. So, so that brings me here. And if I live in Windham County, that was an interesting way to say it, right? So, yeah, 20 years plus organic farmer in Londonderry. It is in Windham County, and we choose where we fall off the mountain over there, and this is our city center of choice, and this has been our city center of choice for a long time. Village center designation is essential. Village center designated downtowns and villages is a lot of why BIFTA exists. We are a quasi-governmental piece in the sense that for all those $5 million or so of historic tax credits and other kinds of assistance that comes in development, particularly water, fire sequestration systems, over the years, that has come with the help of being a designated downtown, which BIFTA holds that piece of. Betsy Thurston is really what BIFTA is all about. She's the most amazing, energetic, awesome, brilliant, inspiring person. I think we can all agree. And my role has been to support her in what she needs and to make it move forward. BIFTA is doing incredibly well. The Down is doing incredibly well. There's hardly any vacancy at all. Really excited about the mixed use of this building. And it is also really important to say that my earliest hat was visiting my closest cousin and my mother's sister in Pomfret, whose husband worked in the VA hospital in White River. And we would choose, are we going to go to Bellows Falls or not? And we could choose the Vilas Bridge, right? Either one. But either way, it was noticed by me, who had severe learning disabilities, looking out the window all the time, that there was this interesting building. And essentially, what it comes down to was, you come over this bridge, did you make a left, go to town? You make a right and go to the rest of Vermont. You go to the Vermont Country Store, whatever, right? Well, that building is the piece that was needed. That is the piece that was needed. That is the gateway. That is the example and the precedent that's been set by everybody here involved with the financial mix that does show that the Wyndham Hotel can be completed and done in the same fashion or similar fashion. The precedent has been set. This building, correct me if I'm wrong, one of 2 first poured concrete buildings in the country, was not a garage that worked on cars. No, the wealthiest municipality per capita in the country 100 years ago, it was to store the cars because the horse and buggies were in the horse and buggy carriage houses. And there wasn't room on the streets with the horse and buggies. This was created for the wealth of America, the industrial wealth of America, some of which the representatives suggested is challenging now. How are we so wealthy yet have so much poverty? We have 7 years, full circle, 100 years, wealthiest municipality, most awesome municipality in the state of Vermont. Boom. Congressman Becca Ballot, nice to see you. No, I think I was the last one. Boom.
All right, thank you all so much. Thank you. I just have a few closing announcements. I just wanted to say thank you to China Garden, Leesi's Deli, and Allen Brothers for the great food back there, all local eateries. Thank you so much to the Milk House Heaters for their awesome music. I hope a lot of you got some cool swag bags with the amazing art from Mindy Fisher. Her studio is right down the street in the Canal Art Gallery space in the Exner block. Yep, Bruce is holding up the beautiful original. It's awesome. Thank you, Mindy. So a couple of logistics. The 4th floor is open to tours of the very, very beautiful apartments. We have a functional elevator, so please go ahead and use that. On the 4th floor, in a couple of the 2 different units, there are rolling presentations. One, historic pictures. Shout out to the Bellows Falls Historical Society. Thank you so much for helping me put that together. And then the other is by Liz Lavornia, who did the photography of the construction. Check those out. We also have Alex from Fact TV in another one of the units. He's set up a storytelling booth. Everyone here, anyone from Bellows Falls, anyone who's been here for generations and generations, everyone has stories about this place. I want to hear them all. We want to capture them all and share them back. So please do tell your story, even if it's the tiniest thing. We'd love to hear it. Right now, we're going to ask folks involved in the ribbon cutting to head up to the facade to officially cut the ribbon. I'm also going to ask board members to sneak up there as well so we can get a picture of you guys. And then here in the tent, we're gonna have Diantha from the design team to lead a little presentation about the challenges and opportunities that we went through with this. So you can dive into any questions you may have, burning questions. And if you are interested in applying, applications are managed through Stewart Property Management. This is going to be managed by the Stewart Property Management. Kathy Raylahan is actually here with some applications. So thank you all so much.
Hi, I'm Charlie Jarvis, and I'm here to enjoy this wonderful building right across from Walgreens, and it's going to be a wonderful addition to our community, the old Bellows Falls garage. These views of the mountains and the river and the village of Bellows Falls, if you put this building in Boston or Hartford, you could get huge rents. It is going to be mostly medium or low income folks, but they are so lucky to be living in a place like that. I'm here here sitting right now, to tell you my little story about the garage, the Bellows Falls garage. I've been in the community for a little over 30 years, and the first one I actually met, I had met the Island Ponders when they owned the building, and they did a wonderful job of having a wonderful store down below. making the side of the building look fantastic. But when they sold it to Frank Hawkins, who was the last owner before the people that bought it now and made these apartments, he used to be a sign painter. In fact, he still is a sign painter. And he would have a party a number of years in a row up on the top floor on, I believe it was for the Rockingham Old Home Days. I must say, there was a time that I drank probably a few more beers than I should have, so maybe that's what I remember most of all. But Frank put together this little group of people, not a little, it must have been 100 people at the time I went, up on the roof of this building and to watch the fireworks and to have burgers and hot dogs. And obviously he always said, well, if you can bring a few dogs and a few rolls, that's fine. But it was such a wonderful experience to see all these folks up there, you know, having their drinks and some of them having soft drinks and eating and getting together. And this was some years back that this all happened. So that was my experience. And although I did have one experience with the Island Ponders, it's the first time I really got to know the Island Ponders that have the Basin Farm also. And now part of it's in Westminster, part of it's in Rockingham, Bellows Falls. And I had no idea the talent that these people had in their candles that they made, beeswax candles, so forth and so on. And they invited me down while I was doing some film for Fact TV, actually, for a wedding that they were going to have. And it was one of my ex-tenants' son that joined the Island Ponders. And it was such a wonderful wedding. It was very interesting. In fact, it's in the archives of the Bellows Falls TV. So, you know, maybe you can put it on sometime now if you could find it. So that is my story about the Bellows Falls garage.
My name is Richard Aither, A-I-T-H-E-R. Way down at the bottom, guys who used to have hot rods and stuff would keep the cars down in the basement. And then my friend Roy Stoll, he used to have a body shop on the second floor. And then he got killed in a car accident, and I took over.
What year was that? Was about 60s, 50s, 80s?
Probably 70s.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And then John Ross, who owns the gas station over on the island, the building was always, you know, used up, you know, like the cleaning, Target cleaning. I think Target was upstairs, and machine shop. Then people moved out, and other, you know, there was a recycling person in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Frank was the last person that owned it there, Frank Hawkins.
Mm-hmm. So my name is Gregory Gay, and this is my mother, Janice Gay. I don't really know much about the operations in this building, but back, I believe it was in 72 or 73, there was a car club that rented the top floor of the building. And my father, Gilbert Gay, was one of the people that was here. He was only here for 1 year, but Barry Fry was here. Len Shalou had a 66 Fairlane up here. Barry had a 64 Mustang, I think. John Ross had a big block Corvette. Joey Fennessy had a Mustang convertible that was up here. And Steve Rummerl had a 340 Demon. There were probably a couple of other people, but I was 12 years old, so it's hard to remember. They were only up here for a couple of years, and then they moved to, I think, the next to lowest floor. Some of the people did, some had gone away, and at one time they were in the very bottom floor. Barry Fry built a Pinto, and he built what's called a tube frame. He basically cut the whole floor and driveline out of the car. He built a complete frame, floors and all, installed the motor and transmission, and raced it over at New England Dragway, and almost won the points championship 1 year with it. He did real well with that car. So those are some of my memories of this building.
I live in Grafton, which is 12 miles west of Bellows Falls. And when I was growing up, my parents would get paid on a Friday and come into Bellows Falls to do their shopping. and then go back out to the outskirts, to the outlying towns, Friday evening. The stores all stayed open until 9 o'clock then. But my dad was a logger, and this building was Bellows Falls Garage. And if my mother came in to town during the daytime, this is where we got our welding tanks. The welding tanks were, placed on the second story of this building. And there was a very steep ramp going up into the second floor. And so we would have to somehow, get these pretty heavy steel tanks with welding gas into our car and get them back out to Grafton. There's some sort of architecturally significant process of building which had to do with pouring cement honeycombs. And of course, a honeycomb structure is very strong. But the ceiling of this building, if you looked up, would be like a honeycomb. It had all these cone-shaped parts that made it very strong. However, and Wyndham Windsor hoped to save that aspect of the building, but they found problems, and it was actually ended up to be more expensive somehow to try to renovate the old building. So this is an all-new steel building.
Michael Kmitch. I grew up down in the basement, down in the garage, with Joe Fennessy, Larry Fry, Mom and Johnny Ross. I just helped them. They were racers, drag racing. They had drag racing cars. And I just hung out with them because they raced. It was kind of like American Graffiti. I wish I had videoed it. Corvettes, Camaros, Roadrunners. I think Barry Fry had a Pinot dragster, if I remember right.
You did.
He did. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's a long time ago. That was quite a while ago.
Well, my grandfather and my father bought this building in 43. We were here until 73. And then they moved to Rocky and Machine.
Now, what did they build here?
The jump shop, a bit of everything.
So, like an example.
Well, my father, are you familiar with the area and all that? Okay. Well, years ago, the Ford Motor place down here was George Morton Motors. And George Morton had a design for a fishing rod holder for a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a contract with my father, handshake, to build these fishing rod holders. He went down to the end of it, and George Morton had an airplane. He crashed and died in the airplane. So his wife, took him, what does she know about fishing rod holders and whatever, So my dad took 2 Hudson Hornets that they had used those for a payment. He didn't make out very well at that time. My dad never made a lot of money there, but Chamberlain's done okay otherwise since then. It was interesting.
So did you come in when you were growing up?
My mother worked in the office, and she went to the hospital with a headache in 47.
Right here?
In Rocky, yeah. I was born here, and I worked in business till I retired 11 years ago in Chamberlain Machine. But yeah,
right.
It was a interesting time,
Now, when they built the fishing rod holders, did they weld the pieces, or did they?
No, they were stamped. They were stamped.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did they galvanize them, or do anything that like a plate?
Yes.
Did they do that here?
Yeah. Well, the plating was done outside, believe me. But now I don't remember all of that detailing.
Yes, I was more amazed at the scope.
I remember the story, the story myself. But then Chamberlain made some ski lifts, chair lifts, chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And across the street here, there was a garage that we burned, but the cement pad was still there. We painted the chairs over there, and we delivered the killing.